With every SEC team eliminated from March Madness, I think it's a good time to go back and look at who the three most disappointing teams are from the SEC season, and also three of the most shocking teams that did incredibly well or did above what they were expected to do this year. Before I get started, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below more topics for discussion about what I can do on this channel, because I want to get involved with you guys. I feel like that's a good idea to do this at least once a week or maybe every other week, just depending on what I can do for football and basketball. There's kind of very limited things I can do. But let's get right started. First up, with the number 3 disappointing team in college basketball for the SEC is the Missouri Tigers. Now, Missouri came into the season ranked number 6 in the preseason polls for the SEC. In the SEC play, they didn't play too bad, and they began the season very strong. However, went on a rough patch and losing their last 4 games in the season. They just struggled to consistently get good wins, and especially losing to Kentucky in the SEC tournament and losing in the first round of playoffs. They just never could get a steady footing. They also threw last games of their regular season as well. On top of that, they just never could win a big game near the end of the season, and they struggled to put up a consistent fight. Now, like most teams, they did deal with the injury bug, but in terms of their whole roster, though, they were still one of the healthiest rosters in the SEC, so injuries weren't the main reason for this. I just felt like the team fell apart, and they just continued to have that losing streak, and it just came at the worst time, because there's a good time to peak and a bad time to peak. They peaked early in the season, and which means that later on you're going to fall off a cliff, and that cliff hit right before the regular season ended, and that meant that the playoff, the SEC tournament, and the March Madness tournament both would end and losses very early. Very quick exits for the Missouri Tigers, and a very disappointing end for them. However, we're going to go to the number 3 team for most shocking teams, or teams that did above what they're supposed to do. The number 3 team being the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, Vanderbilt came to the season ranked number 8 in the SEC rankings. However, no one expected them to do what they were expected to do. Start the season 16-0, being the last SEC team to be undefeated, and then went on to do very well in the conference, going 11-7, and then winning a few games in the tournament, including a very close loss to Nebraska, who ended up doing very well themselves. So Vanderbilt is a very good team to show that, hey, you might be shown to be middle of the pack, but just because you lose a game doesn't mean that it necessarily defines your season. Because they lost to Nebraska, and the way they did, it was a very close match the whole way through. You can't be disappointed if you're a Vanderbilt fan. Better yet, to be that strong of a start, 16-0, is very impressive, very hard to do, and that's something that no team in college basketball except for Miami, Ohio, can really say about their season. In Miami, Ohio, we saw how they went. They weren't very impressive as the season went on. But Vanderbilt's a team that, even though the tape was on them, they still continued to show signs of being great. So Vanderbilt, you are the number 3 team for the best, stories, or the most overachieving teams in the SEC. Back to the disappointing train, the number 2 team for the most disappointing teams in the SEC is the Florida Gators. Now, the Florida Gators, it would be weird because if you think, well, they went decent in the playoff, they were very good in the regular season, 16-2 in conference play, and 27-8 overall, being the number 1 team in the SEC, which is what they're projected to be. However, when we look at what they were supposed to do this year, they're the defending national champions, and they're supposed to come back and reign terror in the SEC tournament and reign terror in the March Madness. They failed to do either, with the loss to Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament, and then let a non-seeded Iowa team beat them in Tampa, Florida. So the fact that they allowed that to happen just shows that they were not ready for the spotlight this year. Now, be it, they had very good moments and very strong moments of the season, so I hate putting them in this list. However, Florida, they had the expectation of at least making a Final Four, and they failed to do that. Anything short of that would have been disappointing, and especially when you bring home no hardware this year, that it just really speaks to how strong of a roster y'all had, and the fact that y'all missed that. But the fact that Florida has that standard now, has the old Kentucky standard, it's kind of scary for other teams to think about that Florida now holds their basketball to the level they used to hold their football program to. And so Florida is the number 2 disappointing team. I feel like there's one more team that was very disappointing this year in terms of where they were ranked versus where they finished off in the SEC, but we'll get to that in a minute. But next up is the Tennessee Volunteers for the most overachieving team in the SEC. Tennessee Volunteers were projected to be number 5 in the SEC. However, no one expected for them to be absolutely terrorizing teams with their polarizing defense. Now, they brought in guys like Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Mint, so people knew they were going to be good, but the way that the rest of the SEC looked this year, no one would have thought Tennessee would be near the top. With an upset win over Iowa State and just having their way after Iowa State just manhandled Kentucky, keep in mind, Tennessee lost twice to Kentucky and Iowa State manhandles them, and then Tennessee takes care of Iowa State like it was nothing. So Tennessee comes through and does that, and I'm going to ignore the Michigan game because, let's be honest, that game probably needs to be watched from every Tennessee fan's memory. But with that game being how far it was in the season, being an Elite 8 team, that is very hard to do, and being one of the last SEC teams in this whole tournament, you cannot be mad for a Tennessee fan being in the Elite 8, and really, this was still a successful season for you guys. No hardware, but it still was a good season for you guys as a team. Nate Mint built a draft stock. Jacoby Gillespie, having a really great year. And y'all still showing that y'all can have a year without Zekai Ziegler and still have a really good guard to play defense and take care of the ball and have a good scoring defense. They did a significantly better job, too, of not going on long scoring droughts. They had a few times where they did that and they struggled to score after offensive rebounds. But in terms of the season success, they did a lot better than what people expected them to do, finishing right at where they were supposed to be at number 5. But with the loss to Michigan sort of tainting their season, people don't realize how good the Tennessee Volunteers were this year, which really sucks to say as a Kentucky fan. Which leads me to the number 1 disappointing team in the SEC, the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, this is not just because I'm a Kentucky fan. I expect us to do very good every year. But a team that struggled with the injury bug probably more than anybody in the SEC, dealing with the loss of the number 4 prospect of the transfer portal come into the year, Jake Clinton's playing only just a few games, and then of course Jalon Lowe, our only point guard on the roster, getting hurt very early. He comes back and then he hurts his shoulder again, had to have surgery, he's out for the season. We missed Cam Williams for a lot of games as well, I think 17 games that he was out. So missing those 3 guys and a lot of just like smaller injuries along the way kind of hurt Kentucky to ever get full momentum and figure out a team identity. And also, when you come in ranked number 2 and being the only post threat to Florida coming into the season, and then you come out and you start off the season 1-5 against the 6th ranked opponents they had out of conference, and then they come to the SEC and they only go 10-8 and going 14-4 at home, 4-6 away, had a losing record as the away team, which even for Kentucky, that is a terrible margin, going 22-14, and even though you start off the season top 10, they finished unranked in the regular season. They have a good win over LSU and Missouri in the SEC tournament, but get absolutely manhandled by the Florida Gators, making it not even close to getting 3-0 swept by the Gators this year. So we go into the tournament thinking, okay, we can at least, have a good game. We almost lose to Santa Clara. Santa Clara, it took a miracle half-court shot from Otega Owe to send it to overtime where we could finally separate, just to go against Iowa State and get absolutely blasted, losing by over 20 points, and just I think it was 19, but getting absolutely manhandled. That was the worst setup that we've ever had against a team that could not take care of the ball, just showing the lack of depth at the point guard position and showing that the glaring issue of this year was not just the injuries, but the fact that our team and our recruiting and the people in charge of the transfer portal did not recruit point guards. We only had 1 point guard coming into the season. That is a recipe for disaster. We saw it last year with only having Lamont Butler, and then we end up losing Jackson Robinson very early on in the year as well. So seeing that Kentucky just failed to take into consideration injuries, we did very good with the big men. I mean, Malachi Moreno is only supposed to be our number 3 guy, and he does have a very great year. But Kentucky fan, and as myself, this was just a very disappointing season as a fan, and just coming out as a basketball fan when you see Kentucky, you're supposed to fear them. Nobody was scared to play Kentucky this year. And that is something that, as a Kentucky fan, that honestly hurts more than losing to Iowa State in the way we did. So Kentucky, you're the #1 disappointing team in the SEC. Get your act together. Now, for the most shocking and most overachieving team in the SEC, I have the Texas Longhorns. The new guys on the block go and absolutely have a terrific run to end the year, but it didn't look like they would ever have that chance to begin with. It looked like they were going to be a team that wasn't really going to be taken seriously. They were 9-9, and they ended up going to the first 4, and they play there. They didn't really have a great SEC conference record. They do beat Kentucky, they do beat a few high-end teams, but they also lose a few games that they shouldn't lose. So they came to the playoff. No one really had high hopes for them, especially with a lot of people not expecting to make it out the first 4, playing a really good team in Miami, Ohio. Not only do they beat Miami, Ohio, but they beat their first round opponent, then they go and beat #3 Gonzaga, then they take #2 Purdue to the end of the game, only losing by 2. I mean, when you look at Texas and how they were supposed to start off, not being a very impressive team at all, coming in at the number 11 preseason role, no one thought the Texas Longhorns had a chance this year, and they come out and they go to the Sweet 16, and I really have to give them props. The best team to have, the best overachieving team, I should say, in the SEC. Now, teams like Arkansas that did really good, they were expected to be there. Alabama was expected to be where they were at, but teams like Texas, no one expected them to go past the first round, and they go through, not just that, but they end up dominating, the first 4 in the first round, and they go into the second round, they do the same thing, in the third round, they put up a good fight against a team that would end up beating a #1 seed, or at least putting up a good fight against #1 seed. They end up losing to Arizona. The score is very, telling that don't just go off the box score. They put up a good fight against Arizona. They did not win that game. But the fact that Texas almost got to play Arizona as an 11 seed, it's just something that it shows how good Texas was when it came down to tournament time, which is the most important time to be at your best game. So Texas, shout out to you. You are my #1 overachieving team this year in the SEC. But that is my take for the SEC, and if you want me to do another conference, put that down below. I'll definitely look into that. And if you have a certain, topic you want me to talk about in terms of sports in general, let me know. I'd love to do things about NBA, NFL, college basketball, college football. I would love to do any of that. But in terms of this video is over. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. Y'all have a great one. Peace.